On a Sunday morning in November 1969, a teenage boy hiking off Mulholland Drive spotted something glinting in the brush below. When he climbed down, he froze. At the bottom of the ravine lay the body of a young woman, face serene, clothing torn, surrounded by silence. The city was already on edge. The Manson murders had happened just 3 months earlier, only a few miles away, and Los Angeles had begun to fear itself. So when detectives arrived at the scene, the first question was whether this was another victim of the so-called family. It wasn't. The woman had been stabbed more than 150 times, mostly in the neck and torso. Her features were unrecognizable, her identity unknown. She carried no purse, no jewelry, no identification. For now, she was just another mystery in a city full of them. The coroner labeled her Jane Doe number 59. Detectives checked missing persons reports from across Southern California, but nothing matched. They lifted fingerprints, took blood samples, and photographed every inch of the Mulholland slope, yet nothing led anywhere. The murder weapon was never found. The timing, only weeks after the Manson killings, guaranteed headlines and speculation spread like wildfire. Was she a runaway from one of the communes? A hitchhiker? Someone who'd crossed paths with the wrong crowd in Hollywood? The case went nowhere. By early 1970, the file was boxed, stamped, unsolved, and pushed to the back of the LAPD homicide shelves. Jane Doe number 59 would stay there for the next 46 years. In the decades that followed, Los Angeles changed. The hills filled with new houses, and the road where her body was found became another scenic overlook for tourists. But deep in an LAPD storage vault, her blood-stained clothing remained sealed in a brown evidence bag, including a bra that still held dried blood. That forgotten piece of evidence would someday change everything. By the early 2000s, the department's cold case unit began recataloging old evidence and testing it with modern DNA techniques. They uploaded details from hundreds of unidentified victims into NamUs, the national database that allows the public to search and compare cases. One of those entries was Jane Doe number 59. For years, it sat quietly online. A few grainy morgue photos, a note about the location, and a date, November 16, 1969. Then, in 2015, half a continent away, someone noticed her. A friend of the Jurvetson family in Montreal came across the NamUs listing and thought the face looked familiar. She sent the link to Reet Jurvetson, whose sister Reet had vanished back in 1969 after moving to Los Angeles at 19. The resemblance was immediate and devastating. Reet had written home just once, a postcard saying she'd met 2 men, one named Gene, another named John, and that she was staying in LA for a while. Then she stopped writing. Her family searched, but with no digital trail and no centralized records, there was nowhere to look. Decades passed. Anne contacted the LAPD and offered a DNA sample. Investigators tested it against the material preserved from the case, that old blood-stained bra, and in December 2015, the results came back. It was a match. The LAPD publicly confirmed her identity the following spring on April 27, 2016. After nearly half a century, Jane Doe number 59 finally had a name, Reet Jurvetson. Detectives reopened the case immediately. They revisited the Mulholland scene, tracked down surviving witnesses, and searched for any record of the men named in her postcard. Through old immigration files and witness statements, they pieced together fragments. Reet had likely met a man in Montreal who introduced himself as Jean or Jean-Guy René, claiming he lived in California. She flew to Los Angeles to see him, and sometime after that meeting, she was murdered. Those men, Jean and John, were never found. Some might still be alive. LAPD released composite sketches and appealed for international tips, working with Interpol and Canadian police. The Manson connection that had shadowed the case for decades was finally ruled out. Detectives said the wounds, weapon, and timeline bore no relation to the cult killings. This was something else entirely, personal, brutal, and still unsolved. Even without an arrest, the reopening changed more than just one case. Reet Jurvetson's identification became a landmark for forensic genealogy, proof that careful evidence preservation and public databases could resurrect a cold case half a century old. The DNA that identified her came from technology unthinkable in 1969: microtrace extraction, advanced sequencing, and comparison with global family databases. Her story also showed how families can solve what police once couldn't. If her friend hadn't clicked that name as link, the case might still be buried in a cardboard box. After confirmation, Reet's remains were cremated, and her family held a private memorial in Montreal. Her sister described her not as a victim, but as a young woman full of curiosity and life who trusted too easily. LAPD's cold case detectives continue to test the old evidence as technology evolves. They've uploaded DNA profiles of the unknown male involved to national databases, and every few years, they recheck for matches. So far, there's been none, but the file is still active. The Reet Jurvetson case became part of a larger movement, a wave of 1960s and 1970s homicides re-examined through new science. Across Los Angeles County, detectives have reopened dozens of similar files, proving that time isn't always the enemy of truth. For the families who waited decades, each solved case is both victory and heartbreak. Mulholland Drive hasn't changed much since that day in 1969. The hills are greener, the road smoother, but if you stop near the old overlook where Reet was found, the city still feels eerily quiet. Los Angeles forgets fast, but sometimes it remembers. Through one family that never stopped wondering, one detective who wouldn't close the file, and one drop of blood saved long enough for science to catch up. That's why this 1960s cold case reopened after 50 years, because the city finally had the tools and the heart to listen.